What if I told you you could catch an extra £20 every time you went fishing? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? On your catch at the end of the day, £20 bonus would, I'm sure, win you money in matches and make you feel that much better if you were just having a pleasure session. What do I mean by that, and how am I going to show you how to do that? Well, one of the superpowers, I think, of a top flight match angler is decision making. How they utilize their time in the match is what gives them the edge. It puts them to the point where they can catch an extra £20. And for me, across the country's commercial fisheries, silverfish give you the option to do that. All right, you might be fishing for carp, and we all know there's different times of the day when you bag up. You might be catching £100 bags, but you might catch £70 in the last hour and a half. You need to make the most of those middle periods and get your timings right in order to catch a little few extra fish. Now, if it was me, I would love to try to utilize my times in segments. I try to say, early on in the match, I'm looking for those bonus carp. I'm looking for the early mugfish. Then, when it quietens down around lunchtime, and we all know what it's like, you're all sitting around looking at anglers, not putting anything in the net, that is the time that you can use the incredible stocks of silverfish that these commercial fisheries hold to catch that extra £20. But if you're going to do that, what you don't want to be doing is going all complicated with loads of different things going on. I'm going to show you a really simple, straightforward approach to making the most of your peg on a commercial fishery when it comes to catching those key silvers in the middle part of the match. Let's get on the box and take a look. So let's talk you through a typical session. I've just been told that I'm on the worst peg on the lake. I bet you've probably had that before. Oh, you don't want to be here, pal, it's not very good, there's not many fish here. Well, this is why I believe what I'm going to show you today can be really good, because what can be perceived as the worst peg on the lake often will hold a few of these other fish, which means you can boost your weight, you can make something of it. Now, I think it's really important to give you an idea of like a typical match plan, because I know that for you guys at home, even if you're just on a pleasure session or whatever it might be, you'd like to know how to make the most of your time. So for me, the classical set out for a commercial match once you get into autumn and winter time is there's always a chance of an early bonus. All right, you can definitely nick a fish or two early doors, be that mugging or setting a trap or a little feeder. You can see I've got a beautiful island opposite me here today. Maybe if I went in with a feeder there early doors with like a little method feeder, or maybe bomb and bread if it was really cold, I might nick a carp or two early. But what tends to happen is then those anglers sit on it and they just start sort of like plug away, catching nothing. So some days you might get an hour and a half out of that early time. Some days you might just get 20 minutes. You've got to try to recognize what sort of day it is, how many other fish are being caught, and how you can make the most of that time. And then that's when I would look at using this middle period of the match just to put other fish in the net. Now, what tends to happen while we're fishing and doing this style of fishing, if it's a good day and there are bonus fish feeding, you'll start to hook them fishing with these tactics, which gives you a great indicator that you can maybe move back to your more aggressive tactics, be in the margins or fishing shallow, or maybe even just big potting and fishing with some sort of bait like meat or corn to try and target some bigger fish. You can use the silvers as that indication. Now, when we said at the start £20, that's probably conservative in some cases. I've caught 50, 60, 70 pound in the middle of the match when it's good, on good, very heavily stocked venues. And then maybe those venues that are a little bit hard or focused a bit more on roach, you might be bringing that down to say 10, 15 pound, but it's better than sitting there with next to nothing throughout the middle. And it gives you the bonus of knowing when to change, because the fish will tell you. So what I don't really want to do in this situation is I don't want to set up loads of rigs. If this was a commercial silverfish match, I'd have a little short line here. I'd maybe have a long pole line, possibly two that I could keep rotating. I'd have a selection of rigs to try to get the best out of it. But really, I don't want that out of the middle period. I don't want to be trying and messing around with loads of different things. I just want something that's almost like a slam dunk of getting a few bites. And that's what I'm going to show you here today. Now, first of all, let's touch on the bait. So ground bait for me is crucial. It's really, really important. Whenever I'm fishing on like a commercial for silverfish, I just won't do it without ground bait. I think it's such a powerful attractant that you need it as part of your mix. It's not something that we tend to use too much in the middle of the lakes. Margins or feeders is where it might come in usually. And what I've gone for today, I've gone for F1 Original and Thatcher's Original combined. Now F1 is a very weak, it's sort of expander based, sweet. It's a beautiful ground bait. And Thatcher's is a little bit stronger. It's got a higher content of fish meal. It's a little bit stickier. So it means that I can combine those perfectly. It's only around about 4.5, 5 foot here today. So I've gone for 3 parts F1 to 1 part Thatcher's. That's my combination. Just that little bit of an extra fish meal boost on top of it and a little bit of extra stickiness. You'll also notice that I haven't gone for a dark ground bait. I've gone for a nice light ground bait, and you'll see why in a minute, because we're not going to be using loads of it. We're going to be using a little bit less, just trying to draw a few fish in. And when I'm using smaller amounts of ground bait, I certainly enjoy this lighter colour because I believe it's very attractive. Sometimes when I'm using large amounts of ground bait, if I don't really want a massive light bed or light form of colour, that's when I'll probably use a darker. But when I'm using small amounts like this, I do love this mix. It's a brilliant, brilliant mix to use. Now, I've got with me a pint of casters, I've got half a pint of maggots, and I've got just a few worms. You don't need many at all. Don't forget, this is just like a filling method, hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at most. And I'm not anticipating using tons of bait. So I wanted to sort of like say to you, you know, you don't have to go nuts with bait. Just bring a little bit of these extra baits and you'll have something to go at when you need it. So I've chopped a little bit of worm up that I've got ready there, and I'll touch on how I combine these baits in a minute. I think before I do that, it's really important that I tell you where I'm going to fish and why, because now you understand the baits and it's not being pellety, you're probably thinking, okay, Lee, well, where are you doing this? You're doing this down the edge, long pole, what are you doing? Well, for me, everything about this line has to be almost like a dead area of your peg, like an area of your peg that you're not anticipating using all the time. So by that, I mean, don't really want to go towards the island or the margins. I really just want to be like in front of myself, 6-7 meters, enough distance from myself that I'm not going to spook the fish, but an area of the peg that's probably a little bit silty and not really where I'm anticipating targeting any carp, like not away from myself, like almost just straight in front of myself. It's really dead easy. So if I put my plummet on, I'll just show you what I mean. I've had a quick plumb up, so I didn't have to spend ages doing it with you guys. This rig is a 4x12 shanty, and whenever I'm fishing for silverfish, for me it's always a shanty. It's nice and sensitive. You can see here I've just tapered the shot, so I've got like a number 11 here, just on top of the hook length. 6 inches away I've got a 10. 5 inches away I've got another 10. 4 inches away I got another 10, and then just 3 or 4 number 10s here at the top. So basically it just tapers down towards the bottom in a nice 6-inch hook length. Really easy. It's my go-to rig when it comes to catching a few silvers. Nothing complicated whatsoever. So just going to ship this out. Now, when I go out, this is a top kit plus 3 sections. So for me, dead easy, like straight down in front of myself. You can see there, I've set the float, so it's just at the bottom of the float. So I'm going to have like an inch or so of line on the bottom. And if I bounce it up and down, you can actually see, look, it gets stuck in the silt a little bit. So it's a little bit silty. And if I go left or right, I'm anticipating it's going to be almost the same depth. So to the right, it's the same depth. To the left, it's the same depth, I'm hoping. Yeah, possibly half an inch shallower. What happens if I come back a little bit and drop it down? Yeah, look, the same depth. And if I reach out a little bit further into the lake, there you go, look, it's all the same. So it's all very flat, very typical of this style of commercial fishery, whereby the bottom over the years is just leveled out with a bit of silt, and I've got a nice little flat area that I can concentrate and fish with. You can see I've got around about a foot of line between my pole tip and float, which is perfect. And there, just plumbed it up so it's at the bottom of the body of the float. So when it sits down in the water, you can see the float's going to be absolutely perfect there, nice and sensitive. Wallop, I'll be catching those soon. And I've got, and I think this is important as well, I've got a single 5 elastic. Don't just get one of your heavy elastic top kits out and start doing it with that. Try to treat every fish with the respect it deserves, and then you don't lose focus and think that you're wasting your time. If you've got nice soft elastic, you hook the fish, the elastic comes out, you take your time, you net the fish. Before you know it, you get into a nicer rhythm. I see a lot of people put like a 10 hollow on or something like that. They catch 2 or 3 quickly. They lose one in the swim because the elastic's too hard, and then they just don't catch any more. You're not trying to race. You're not trying to smash a million fish out at a million miles an hour. You're just trying to keep putting a few fish in the net during this middle period. So a nice soft elastic is important. Just going to pop that down there. Let's touch on when you're going to feed it. Now, this for me is the most important thing, because I see so many people like piling in the bait early doors at the start of the match. It's just not the way to go. While you're fishing for your 1 or 2 carp or your big F1s in your chosen spot, do not feed your silverfish line. You don't need to. You're not trying to build it up. There's lots of silvers in these venues. You don't need a massive amount of time to wait before you go on it. I always think around about 10 minutes before I'm thinking about doing it. So when you get that first thought in your mind that, do you know what? I want to have a look on my silvers line. That's when I feed it. So it gives me 10 minutes of thinking time, 10 minutes more to try and catch that bonus fish. Because if I catch that bonus fish, I might stay on it for another 10 minutes. But I just need like 5 to 10 minutes for those few silvers to gather, and then I can go in on the line. So I'm going to show you how to kick it off. Then we're going to give it 10 minutes and we'll take our first look, and you can basically follow me live through that session as it happens. So what I've done is I've chopped a little bit of worm. You can see here in the pot, just put it on my strainer, not loads at all. You don't need loads of worm. Once it goes cool, I'm not a big fan of piling in lots of worm. I just think worm's really powerful. They don't like loads of it. So if you look there, like a nice small amount on my fingers, I'm just going to flick that into a little bait tub. So hardly anything at all. Then I'm just going to get a tiny bit of ground bait and just stir that all around like that. Now, that would be roughly the amount that I would kick the peg off with. Like hardly anything, a bit of worm and a bit of ground bait. So what I usually do is I do that like 3 times. So I have 3 lots all ready to keep my peg going. 3, give that a good stir around in there. The worms will really dampen the ground bait down, which I think's super important. And like I say, the bottom's really silty. My ground bait's super attractive. My worms are super attractive. So I don't need a big hit to start. I literally just need this. Nip together once so it breaks up on the way down and pops in my big pot. So let's pop this in the water. Super accurate, right on my mark, which is going to be there today. I'm just going to slip that into the water. I'm going to just put some water in my cup, get out any few crumbs just for a bit of extra attraction. And that's it. I've set it up. I'm ready. I'm ready to see what happens. How we feed it today, how we go about approaching it, I don't know. We're going to do that with you as we go. But that's how I set it up. 10 minutes before I'm going to go on it. Let's give it that 10 minutes and see what happens. Right, let's get another look. I love a dead maggot to start with. I've got a 18 XFS hook on, which is a really fine hook, a to 010. I think really fine hooks and line are really important. I just feel like you catch so many more fish with them, particularly now it's cooled down. Single red maggot. I'm not going to do anything to start with. We're obviously fed that bait. It's about 9 minutes now, so I'm going to go in and see what's there. I've got a little pot on the end of my pole because it's probably how I'll start fishing to start with. So ideally, the fish that you would love to catch are like skimmers. Now, when you catch skimmers, the difference between skimmers and roach is effectively the weight. These skimmers on commercial fisheries, they weigh so well. You know, you think it's going to be like 3 ounce and it'll be 5 ounce. And, you know, you catch one that you think, oh, that might be 12 ounce and it's ended up like a pound, because they live on pellets a lot of the time and they've got a great source of food. So they really do weigh well. If you're catching roach are great, but you've got to catch them quite quickly. So in all honesty, I'm kind of trying to avoid roach. I will catch them if they're a really good stamp, like big sort of 4 ounce fish, that's great. But what I don't want to do is I don't really want to target like small roach. Don't mind small skimmers. So that's why I'm not loose feeding or anything to start with. I'm just using that little bit of ground bait with the worm to see what's in the peg. Now that, I just saw my float get a little bit lower there. It actually needs to be shotted down a little bit, I think. Perhaps, might just be because it's the first put in. Just saw it move a little bit. And that's all it takes. That's why you've got a fish so light and fine. Got this nice obviously 5 elastic. You know, see, not even sure where this is hooked. No, we're good. We're good, I think. Yep. Just outside the mouth, that one, which is why he fought a little bit harder. But that is the classic fish on a lot of these fisheries that I'm looking for. You know, he looks like he should be 4 ounce, but he probably weighs 6. Really thick set. Great fish for building weights. 3 of those for £1. You know, maybe a bit more, but let's say 3 for £1. So, you know, in no time at all. And that's what, you know, I love to do on my videos, kind of like show you in real time what you're looking for. Now, like I said, that float actually just sat up a little bit high for me. Just move my back shot down. Might just be the first couple, you know, like when you've just started fishing, sometimes it can be set up a little bit. Now, what I also noticed there was, obviously those little skimmers, they love a little bit of ground bait every time. And this is going to probably surprise a lot of you. I'm literally going to put like an 8mm pellet size piece of ground bait in my pot. Honestly, you do not want to overdo it. You don't want to overkill it. You just want to keep those few fish feeding in. And if it's skimmers that we're targeting, you can't beat the ground bait. It's so good, but you can't go nuts with it. So look, I'm going to pop this little bit of ground bait in, and then I'm literally just going to lay my rig smack bang over the top of it. Let's see how it sits this time, if I can get it to sit. You can already see like little bits of fizzing. There you go, it's just shotting down a bit nicer this time. Oh look, little lift. Watch that bristle really carefully, guys. You can see that the little movements and that are there. Ideally, I'm looking for any little quick movements on the bristle. Like that, off, there we go. What great fishing. I absolutely love it. When you're fishing like this, you can see again why the soft elastic's important. That fish flew off to the left, then flew to the right. You know, if you didn't have soft elastic, he'd have just pinged off. Look at him, he's 8 ounce at least. That is the sort of fishing that I'm talking about. I tell you what, he's bigger than that, much bigger, look. Probably 12 Oz, I'd say, something like that, maybe 10 Oz. So already, I'm at £1. As quick as that, I've caught £1, you know, and you don't have to play the fish or do anything like that. What a great fish that is. So a great response there again. Now, I'm that cautious about overdoing it that I'm not going to feed this time. I'm just going to literally go in and see if I can catch one off the back of that feed. because I caught it quite quickly, let's see if we can catch another one off the back of that. If we can't, I'll sort of give it like 2 or 3 minutes, and if we can't, I'll come back in and feed it again. So just putting that rig in dead nice like you saw. Got a little back shot behind my float, and I can just use that to make sure that the float sits right down and breaks that surface tension. There's obviously a little bit of surface tension there. Keep everything nice and still, nice and patient. What you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be moving your rig or jigging your rig about or disturbing anything. You want to get your bait in and then just sit nice and patient. That's how you catch those good stamp fish. I tend to sort of wait usually around 2 minutes, and then I might pick the rig up and drop it back in again. But I don't want to unsettle the fish that are there to start with. That's the key for me. And if we feel that we are waiting, or if we feel that they are responding to the ground bait quickly, I won't hesitate to come back in. See those little bubbles just to the left of my float there? That's a decent fish, that is. Something is, you know, like a decent skimmer or something has just disturbed the bottom there. So we don't want to give them tons of options. We just want a tiny little bit of ground bait. You know, we'll try a little bit of worm even in a bit. So those fish that we've caught there, they are the fish that I want to target. The problem with loose feeding, if the bottom's all soft and silty, you can already see we're getting quite a lot of like fizzing and activity and what have you. Loose feeding's all well and good, but if you loose feed any amount of bait, you just end up getting the fish like digging around, grubbing around for a lot of loose feed, and it becomes quite chaotic. And often you just get some smaller fish there, or the fish become disturbed. So we're trying to read this as we go, nice and patient. Now obviously we got a bite nice and quickly last time off that little bit of feed, so I'm already in my head thinking I might just want a tiny bit of feed regularly to keep the fish coming. So I'm just going to bring that in. And this is the sort of like how quickly I want to read it. I'm literally, honestly, look, okay, tiny little bit of ground bait. Probably got 2 bits of worm in it, something like that. Just ship out to my spot. Pick my spot where I'm going to feed it. And then drop my rig in over the top. So this will be interesting this time. See if we get a quicker response or not. You've got to be cautious. You can't just keep ploughing ground bait in. There you go, a little indication there straight away. You can look how nicely shotted my float is. That how it is now is really how I want it, really shotted down, because these little skimmers, they grub around so much, they don't give you massively positive bites. With that bubble coming up right next to the float, so the fish are right on that ground bait straight away. Just waiting for one to eat the maggot. You have to be, look at that, another little bubble there. So you can see straight away they're coming into the peg, aren't they? Our job now is to try and figure out how to catch them as efficiently as possible. And what bait might be right. It might be that we need a bigger hook bait, double maggot, or a piece of worm, something a bit smellier. Maybe it's a bit murky down there. Maybe they're looking for that small piece of worm to eat. The float's just drifting a little bit, so I'm just going to lift the rig up, put it back down. There you go. Little tiny bite. Little tiny bite. There's these little fish. They're in here. They're in here, these little skimmers. Just going to go straight back in there because it's only a tiny one. I'm actually going to put a tiny, tiny piece of worm on. When I say tiny, I'm going to show you what I mean. One of my favourite pieces of worm is almost like a bit of your chopped worm out of your pot, if you like. So if I put that on the back of my hand, look at that, it's just like a tiny piece of your chopped worm. But it's very smelly, and it also will tell me quite quickly if it's worm that they're wanting to eat. Because if it is worms they want to eat, that's great, I'm happy to feed it. But if I can't get a bite on worm, I might have to like reduce the amount of worm that goes in. But let's see. Oh, little touch there straight away as it settled. Oh, another little indication there. These are small skimmers. They need this element of finesse. Like a tiny piece of worm like this can sometimes just be, you can just pick it out that little bit quicker. Trying to wait for something a little bit more positive. I don't really want to foul hook anything. You can sort of see the little tiny movements on the float there like that. Tiny little movements on the float. That's what these skimmers give. They put their head down and they're like rooting around in the mud. I feel like we probably need to feed every time just to keep them nice and concentrated. But we'll just be a little bit patient for a minute. We don't have to rush anything.
Apologies for interrupting the video, folks, but I just want to tell you how you can order your Sonubaits clothing. If your tackle shop is a Sonubaits Stockits, just order it through them. Tell them your size. Obviously, we do caps, we do t-shirts, we do hoodies. Tell them your size, and on the very next order, they can get it delivered for you. Ta-da!
That worm just took a little bit longer. Took a little bit longer to get one there than I would have liked. Nice fish though again. These are really like, I tell you what, I'm already feeling with this peg at the moment, and it might settle down. It might settle down and get good. You know, another one of those little skimmers. These little skimmers want some really nice fishing for. You know, they don't want the heavy gear. So I'm already like thinking this is a really good move. Now, I did feel like the maggot was slightly quicker to get me a bite. So I'm going to go for a maggot again. And I also feel like these sorts of fish, they literally come down to your bait straight away. So I wonder if he wants a very slightly bigger piece of bait just to hold them down for a little bit longer. So everything's about trial and error in fishing. So double the size without the skimmer slime on it. Let's just try double the size. It's still not massive, but just wondering if it needs a little bit more just to get them to stay down there for a bit longer. So let's have a go, see what happens. Again, put the ground bait in. Still not confident that I should be loose feeding just yet. I will try loose feeding. I think what you always have to remember, this isn't like a set formula for success. This is more like, you know, whenever you're fishing, you trial and error. Look at that, straight away that was. Straight away. I just feel like that ground bait's so important. I feel like they're coming straight to it. So maybe a tiny bigger piece was a little bit more attractive. You know, just try showing these skimmers a bit of respect. Don't need to go nuts. It's a good one, that one. So we're on £2 now. So like after waiting a little while, so it definitely doesn't seem to me like worm is as good as maggot. That fish has grabbed it straight away on the maggot. So there's a little learning there. Maybe like a little bit less worm in my ground bait. So what I'll do is I'll grab some ground bait, put it in this mix already. No extra worm, just give it a little bit of water. Stir it round a bit. So now I've got less worm in there, more ground bait. And I'm doing that because I feel like, you know, when I put worm on the hook there, it wasn't particularly good. I waited a long time for one. Whereas again, with the maggot, I've caught one straight away. So maybe they just want those, you know, they're not really that fussed about the worm, but just a little bit of smell in there might be good. So I'm going to do the same again. Just going to get like a tiny little bit of ground bait, nice and wet. I put a bit of extra water on it there so it's nice and wet. That was a really quick bite, and you might be thinking, well Lee, you just fed. If I just feel like they're in and down straight away. I also felt like I plopped that in a little bit as well, so like maybe a little bit of noise just to suck one straight down. That was certainly one of the quickest bites we had. I also think it's worth noting that the bite came quite quickly after the float settled, so maybe I have to think about lifting my rig out a little bit more often rather than sort of sitting too patiently. These are the sorts of thought processes that are going through my head all the time to try to make the best of my time on the, you know, on this session. There you go, little bite straight away again, little tiny bite, but a smaller one that time. But they all count. This is what I mean. Nice light elastic. Treat everything with a bit of respect. So just a 2 ounce at that time. Skimmer from before he's having a comfy lie down in the reeds. Now I caught that one really quickly, and I've just fed those 2 slightly bigger bits of ground bait in a row. So I am very, very cautious of overdoing it, but I do feel it needs something every time. So I'm just going to go back to that tiny little piece this time. But you can already see how quickly I can amass a bit of a weight. You know, like we've got £2 over £2 for definite now in this really short window. You know, so if you're doing this at this sort of rate, you're going to catch well over £20 in this middle period. So again, just flicking that in, holding the rig nice and still right over the bait. Look how my float is super dotted down now. So important, these things. All these little elements come together to give you that little, see that little sort of just raise up a little bit. Look, this, just their indications. They're dead slow, so they're not bites, but they're showing that there's fish in the peg. And I'm concentrating really carefully on my float. Any quick little movement is what I'm going to strike at. See now it's really dotted down. That's how I wanted it. It's just the float's just settled in a little bit now, like they do. Lovely, that is. Really good, that is. You know, maybe I can be a little bit more aggressive with the ground bait today if those slightly bigger balls have got me a fish really quickly, but I am very cautious of overcooking it. So if I can just catch another one now, and then I might put a bigger ball in next time, you know. I'm going to sort of give that another 10 seconds, then I'm going to pick my rig out again and lay it back in, because I do feel like that got me a fish as well. Didn't need to, so that's gone under already. So you can see, good fishing, nice fishing. There's obviously quite a few of these little ones in, which is fine, no problem whatsoever. You're going to get runs of like smaller ones and runs of bigger ones, and you know, they're going to come and go. What I'll do is just, for you guys, I'll start to loose feed a bit. I wouldn't do that in a match or a session just yet. I'm not feeling like it's ready for it, but I always like to try to show you as much as I can when you're watching the videos. So I'm going to put a slightly bigger ball in this time. And if I was to loose feed in this situation, if I did feel like it needed a little bit of noise, one thing that I would do is I would always put the ground bait in first, and I don't loose feed straight away. So I'd pop the ground bait in, pop the float down on it, let my maggot come right down onto the ground bait. And I'm not looking to loose feed in this first little period. Ideally, I'm looking to loose feed when I've hooked a fish or before I ship out, because in 5 foot of water, it's going to take a good 30 seconds for my bait to fall. What I don't want to do is, I don't really want fish all at different depths while I'm trying to fish on the bottom. See that little pimpling straight away. So now we've got more ground bait, less worms. So if I was going to loose feed, one thing that I always try to do is just loose feed a little bit shorter of the float. So, oh, that was probably a bite there. A little indication there's a fish grubbing around there for sure. Oh. Just grubbing around near my float he was. Drop that rig back in, nice and accurate. It's quite hard today, the wind's sort of blowing the rig back at me, so I've got to concentrate to make sure that I am nicely on my bait. The peg's starting to build a little bit now, I feel like I'm starting to understand it a little bit. You know, they're clearly coming into that ground bait straight away, because we had a bite there again straight away. I think they're almost coming in and sifting that ground bait through and eating it really quickly, I think. So you've got like this little window to catch one. If you sit there waiting, I'm not sure that you're going to catch them, to be fair. So then the other thing that you could experiment with is loose feeding. Now, I'm going to try and get this right for you, but it's the first time I picked my catapult up, so I'm getting my excuses out already. If I was to loose feed, it's really important for me that the loose feed goes short of your float. So that's why sometimes I'll even throw at this distance, and it would only be like 8 to 10 casters, but I feel like with the wind in my face today, I'm only going to be able to feed those casters up to probably about 1 metre short of that. So I'm going to try to use my catapult, and it's hard at this distance. So I want to be short. Short's important. So if my first one's miles short, that's better than going past. So look, that's my first one, like probably 1 metre short. So I go, okay, just get my eye in. There we go. That's where I want it, like 1 foot or so short of the float. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to have the chaos of the loose feed bait in and around where I'm fishing. I've got the ground bait there for that. I've got the ground bait to pinpoint the fish on the bottom. The loose feed is there just to try and draw a few fish in. And you're trying to fish off the back edge of your loose feed. You're not trying to fish in and amongst your loose feed like you would do if you were shallow fishing maybe, or something like that. You just don't want the chaos of loose feed in and around your float. So like that, that's perfect, just there. Just that little bit short of where you're wanting to fish. And then use your tiny bit of ground bait to suck your fish down all the time. What I don't want is I don't want loads of bait on the bottom where I'm trying to fish with my maggot, because you can see it's hard enough for them to pick it out as it is. So if you start putting loads of loose fed bait down there, it's going to be even harder for them to pick it out. So if you were using loose feed to try to attract a few fish into the peg, then try and do it by keeping it nice and short. Let's just have another feed. Feel like I'm getting 1 chance off a feed so far. So pop that in again. I feel like you've got to be really on it, and you're getting, like I say, 1 chance. You've got like a minute window to catch one, which means you're really active, you're really busy, and you're building your peg all the time. So putting the rig in like that, keeping it nice and still. And I feel like this is my golden window now. Like just after I've fed, I think one's coming straight down on that bit of ground bait. There's nothing really there, but maybe an odd piece of worm and my maggot. And that's giving me my best chance to catch one. That's why I don't want loads of loose feed there. Keeping it nice and still. There you go. That is perfect. It's literally like, ooh, pinged off. It's literally like happening now. I'm understanding what's going on in the peg, apart from the tangle. Nobody likes to see that, do they? So, but I'm understanding more what's going on in the peg. I've got this like window of when I can get a bite. So it's just after I've fed some bait. I'm gonna have to get rid of this tangle for you. Let me tell you now, there's no way he's cutting this out. He wouldn't let me off with that, would he? Look at that, I've got it out, no problem. So, but can you see how quickly that bite is coming? Like I'm feeding, and then within that 1 minute, that's when the bite's coming. That's why you can't go nuts with like a great big ball, because you couldn't keep doing that all the time. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a settle into this session, see what more I can put in the net, and then I'm gonna give you a bit of a summary of what I've found out. But I think you can see already how effective this could be in that middle period when there's not lots of bites, because it could, obviously, if the fish are bigger even, you could catch an even bigger weight. But as it is now, I'm just gonna get my head down. Well, we're flying now. There's loads of bites actually as it happens. You get little runs, like often you get a big fish, then you get small little fish like that. And what's really noticeable to me is the fish are loving the ground bait. Now, I took a little bit of a gamble while I was sort of like finding my feet with it. And I fed like a golf ball size in the bigger cup, and they came straight to it. And it gave me the confidence to think, do you know what? I can up this ground bait today. So I'm just putting like a decent ball in and trying to catch like 2 or 3 fish off it instead. Just seems like every time I've increased the ground bait, it hasn't had a negative effect. So like I said to you before, I'm cautious of like blowing it up, if you like, in effect. But as long as you're aware of that and you're always paying attention, you've got that scope. But they are definitely coming into it straight away. And I can, by feeding like a tiny bit, I felt like it wasn't quite as fast as I want it to be. So I always feel like to get the most of this sort of fishing, you want to be able to catch like 3 or 4 fish really quickly, even if you're topping it up and sort of waiting for a minute for that to take effect. Like you can see there, just fed a ball straight away. There's a fish on it. This is just a small one. But you're catching really quickly, and that is very important. Single maggot has definitely been the best bait. I'm not convinced by the loose feed at all, so I sort of stopped that. I wasn't sure that was the one, to be honest. But I've had some nice skimmers up to £1, and probably had like 7 or 8 pound in this little period, sort of like 45 minutes, something like that, which is just really good fishing. But you see, I'm not going to feed this time, because I fed that like decent sized ball last time. I'm just going to try and catch like 2 or 3 fish off it, or sort of like almost like fish it out each time. But that doesn't mean sitting and waiting for ages. If I go in and don't get any bites or don't get a response, I'm just going to be feel free to feed again. Look at this, really good fishing now, really good. And you can just tell that they're responding to the ground bait, and that's what any sort of fishing is about, you know, like trying to make the judgments, make the right, oh, big roach, trying to make the call to see what will happen. Look at that. Don't mind catching those roach, do you? That's absolutely beautiful, that fish. But that's why I think, you know, you've got to be open-minded to trying these things. And you can see now we really are going to put a weight together quickly, because the fish are coming in and we've sort of built it up to what it needed. We're going to try and catch one more for you there, just so you can see what happens. And if I go out now and don't catch one, obviously I've got the confidence to feed again, because you've seen how quickly those fish are coming into the bait. And it's brilliant fishing, you know, catching fish like that roach there, you know, odd big skimmers. Every time it's going under, I'm not sure what to expect. Now, at some point in this, oh, bumped him. Oh, bumped him. At some point in this day, I would expect a few carp or F1s to start coming in on the scene. And when that happens, that's when you know you can probably go back to your carp style fishing or your big fish style fishing to finish your weight off. But you can see how brilliant this can be when they're there. Catch one more for you, hopefully. You can see how quickly I got a bite that time and how they're responding to that ground bite. They're absolutely loving it. You know, it's making a big difference to my peg. See like the fish, I can see the activity in the peg. So they weren't quite ready for the tiny amounts. They were happy for me to be a bit more aggressive, but by building it up slowly, feel like I've got the best out of it. You can just see there's more fish. You can see like little indications, and there we go. Just straight away. Brilliant fishing. Absolutely brilliant fishing. You know, and this is what, you know, great places like Partridge and, you know, a lot of other commercial fisheries across the country can offer, and they can offer you this opportunity. This is going to turn into £30, you know, in the middle of the match now, because the fish are a good stamp, and you're busy, you're keeping up with what's going on. So next time you're fishing, or if you're in a match, or even if you're just wanting to have a day on the bank, you don't have to sit all day for your 2 or 3 carp. You can make the best out of your middle period, and you're going to end up with a better catch at the end of the day. And as you can see, there's nothing really that complicated to it either. You get all those things right, and you will catch more fish.